Jake Morrison sat in the pilot seat of his cargo ship Star Runner, watching the stars through the front window. He had been flying through space for 12 hours straight, carrying medical supplies to the mining colony on Kepler 7. The job paid well, but it was boring work. Jake drank his coffee and checked the ship's systems for the 100th time that day. The cargo hold was full of medicine and food that the miners desperately needed. Their last supply ship had been hit by space pirates 3 weeks ago. Now Jake was their only hope of getting help before people started dying from the sickness that was spreading through their colony. Jake was 32 years old and had been flying cargo ships for 8 years. He was tall and strong, with brown hair and blue eyes. Most people thought he was just another space trucker trying to make money. They did not know that Jake had once been a military pilot who fought in the war against the Centauri Republic. He left the military after his younger brother died in a mining accident. Jake blamed himself for not being there to help. The ship's computer made a soft, beeping sound. Jake looked at the screen and saw a red warning light. The sensors had picked up something unusual in the asteroid field ahead. Most pilots would ignore it and keep flying. Asteroid fields were dangerous places where ships went to die. But Jake was curious about what his sensors had found. He slowed the Star Runner and moved closer to the asteroid field. The sensors showed a small object floating between two large rocks. It was too small to be another cargo ship and too big to be just space junk. Jake turned on the ship's powerful lights and looked through his telescope. What he saw made him sit up straight in his chair. It was an escape pod, badly damaged and spinning slowly in space. The pod was not human-made. Its design was strange, with curved lines and a blue metal surface that Jake had never seen before. Scorch marks covered one side of the pod, and several pieces were missing from its hull. Jake knew he should call the authorities and report the pod. But the nearest space station was 2 days away. If someone was inside that pod, they would be dead by the time help arrived. Jake had to make a choice right now. He moved his ship closer to the escape pod. The Star Runner's sensors could not tell if anyone was alive inside the damaged craft. The pod systems were either broken or turned off. Jake could see through a small window on the pod's side, but it was too dark to make out anything inside. The asteroid field was getting more dangerous as chunks of rock drifted closer to his ship. Jake had to act fast or leave the pod behind. He made his decision and turned on the ship's tractor beam. The escape pod was pulled slowly toward the Star Runner's cargo bay. It took 20 minutes to get the pod safely inside his ship. Jake put on his spacesuit and went to check on his find. Up close, the pod looked even stranger. The metal was smooth and warm to the touch. Strange symbols were carved into the surface near what looked like a door. Jake had never seen writing like this before. He found the pod's emergency release switch and opened the door. A cloud of strange-smelling gas poured out, making Jake step back. When the air cleared, he looked inside and gasped at what he saw. A young alien lay unconscious on the pod's small bed. The creature looked almost human but was clearly from another world. Its skin was light blue with silver markings running down both arms. It was tall and thin, probably a teenager based on its size. The alien wore a simple gray jumpsuit that was torn and burned in several places. Jake could see that the alien was badly hurt. Burns covered the left side of its face and neck. Its breathing was weak and shallow. Without medical help soon, the creature would die. Jake had two choices. He could put the alien back in the pod and leave it to die. That would be the safe thing to do. Taking aliens aboard human ships without proper permits was against the law. Jake could lose his trading license and go to prison, or he could try to save the alien's life. Jake looked at the young creature's face. Even unconscious and hurt, it looked peaceful and innocent. It reminded him of his dead brother when they were kids. Jake made his choice. He carefully lifted the alien from the pod and carried it to his ship's medical bay. The Star Runner was not a big ship, but it had basic medical equipment for emergencies. Jake had trained as a field medic in the military, so he knew how to treat injuries. The alien's body was warmer than a human's and its heart beat faster. Jake used the medical scanner to check for broken bones and internal injuries. The scanner showed that the alien had breathed in poisonous gas and had severe burns, but no broken bones. Jake cleaned the burns and gave the alien medicine to help it breathe better. He hooked up machines to monitor its heart and lungs. Then, he made a bed in the small room next to the medical bay and moved the alien there where it would be more comfortable. While the alien slept, Jake went back to examine the escape pod. He found pieces of the alien's belongings scattered inside. There were strange tools, some kind of electronic device, and what looked like family pictures. In one picture, Jake could see 3 aliens who looked similar to his patient. They were standing together and seemed happy. Jake also found debris floating in the asteroid field around where he had discovered the pod. Large pieces of metal drifted between the rocks. The metal had the same blue color as the escape pod. Jake realized these were pieces of a much larger ship that had been destroyed. The scorch marks on the debris told a story that made Jake angry. This was not an accident. Someone had attacked the alien ship with weapons and destroyed it. The escape pod was probably the only thing that survived the attack. Jake wondered who would attack a ship carrying what appeared to be a family. Pirates, maybe, or slavers who captured aliens to sell them. Either way, it made Jake sick to think about it. He flew his ship away from the asteroid field and set course for Kepler 7 again, but now he had a problem. What would he do with the alien when it woke up? How would they communicate? And what if whoever destroyed the alien ship came looking for survivors? Jake checked on his patient one more time before returning to the pilot's seat. The alien was still unconscious but breathing easier now. Its wounds were healing faster than Jake expected. Maybe aliens recovered from injuries quicker than humans did. As the Star Runner flew through space toward Kepler 7, Jake wondered what he had gotten himself into. He had saved a life, but he might have put himself in terrible danger. Still, when he looked back at his choice, Jake knew he would do the same thing again. The alien boy was alone and hurt, far from home and family. Jake understood what that felt like. He would protect this young creature no matter what it cost him. The Star Runner twisted through the asteroid field like a wounded bird trying to escape hungry cats. Jake's hands moved over the controls with desperate skill, while Kale kept the ship's systems running better than they ever had before. But even with the young alien's help, their ship was taking too much damage. Red warning lights flashed across the control panel. The rear shields were down to 20%, and the left engine was making grinding noises that meant it would fail soon. Behind them, the 6 Vorten fighters kept firing their laser cannons, turning chunks of asteroid into glowing dust. "Hull, breach in cargo bay 2, Jake shouted over the noise of alarms. "We're losing air." Kale pressed his glowing hands against the emergency repair panel. The ship's automatic systems worked faster under his touch, sealing the hole with emergency patches. But Jake knew they could not keep this up much longer. Then salvation appeared on the sensors. 3 human ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the asteroid field. The Liberty's Edge and 2 smaller patrol ships came racing toward the battle. "This is Captain Lisa Chen," came the voice over the radio. "Jake, where are you?" "Following the laser light show," Jake replied, spinning his ship around a floating boulder the size of a house. "We're the ones being shot at." Lisa's ships moved into attack formation. The Liberty's Edge was a real warship, built for fighting instead of carrying cargo. Her weapons were much more powerful than anything the Vorthons had, but the 3 big Vorthon warships had been waiting for this moment. They came out from behind the largest asteroids where they had been hiding. Now it was 3 against 3, and the battle became much more dangerous. "Jake, get out of there," Lisa ordered. "We'll handle the big ships, you deal with the fighters." Jake tried to escape from the fighter ships, but his damaged engines could not give him enough speed. The Star Runner shuddered as another laser blast hit their rear hull. This time the damage was serious. "Main engine failure," Jake announced, watching his speed drop rapidly. "We're not going anywhere fast." The Vorthon fighters sensed weakness and moved in for the kill. Jake did his best to dodge their attacks, but without full engine power he was like a sitting duck. The ship rocked from multiple hits, and more warning lights began flashing. Meanwhile, Lisa's ships were fighting the 3 Vorthon warships in a deadly dance among the asteroids. Laser cannons and missile explosions lit up space like a fireworks show. The human ships were smaller but faster, darting between asteroids while trading shots with the enemy. "Life support failing," Kale reported, his silver markings dim with worry. Air getting thin. Jake looked at his young friend and made the hardest decision of his life. He activated the ship's communication system and called Lisa. Liberty's Edge. This is Jake. My ship is dying and those fighters won't give up. I'm going to transfer Kale to your ship. How? Lisa asked. You're surrounded by enemy fighters. Jake was already working out the details in his head. I'll use the escape pod to get him to you. Then I'll create a distraction so you can get away. What kind of distraction? Lisa demanded. Jake looked at his failing ship and then at the biggest Vorthan warship. The kind that goes boom. Jake, no. There has to be another way. There isn't time to find one, Jake replied. He was already preparing the escape pod and showing Kale how to use it. That boy has to survive. The peace between our species depends on it. Kale grabbed Jake's arm with surprising strength. I not leave you. We stay together. Listen to me, Jake said, looking into Kale's dark eyes. Your father died to save you. Your mother died to save you. Don't let their sacrifice mean nothing. You have to live to make peace between humans and Zephyrians. Tears ran down Kale's blue cheeks. You like family to me now. I not want lose more family. Jake felt his own eyes getting wet. You won't lose me. I'll find a way out. But first, I need to know you're safe. The ship shook from another hit. Jake helped Kale into the escape pod and sealed it shut. Through the small window, he could see the young alien pressing his hands against the glass, still trying to convince Jake to come with him. Jake launched the escape pod toward Lisa's ship. The small craft shot away from the Star Runner just as the Vorthan fighters realized what was happening. Two of them broke off to chase the pod, but Jake was ready for that. He turned his dying ship directly toward the largest Vorthan warship and pushed the engines to maximum power. Even damaged, the Star Runner was still a big ship full of cargo. If he could ram it into the enemy vessel, the explosion would be massive. Human fool, came the Vorthan commander's voice over the radio. You will die for nothing. Maybe, Jake replied, but you're coming with me. The Vorthan warship tried to turn away, but it was too big and slow. Jake aimed for the section where he guessed their main reactor would be. If he hit it just right, the explosion would cripple or destroy the entire ship. Lisa's voice crackled over the radio. Jake, we have the boy. Get out of there now. Jake was already reaching for the controls of his own escape pod when a Vorthan fighter appeared right in front of him. The enemy pilot had figured out Jake's plan and was trying to destroy the Star Runner before it could ram the bigger ship. The fighter's lasers tore through the Star Runner's front hull. Jake felt the control panel explode in sparks around him. Pain shot through his left arm where a piece of metal had cut him. The ship's nose began to come apart, but it was still flying toward the Vorthan warship. Jake forced himself to stay at the controls for a few more seconds, making sure his ship was aimed correctly. Then he stumbled toward his escape pod, leaving a trail of blood on the floor. The Star Runner hit the Vorthan warship just as Jake's escape pod shot clear of the explosion. The cargo ship's fuel tanks and the warship's reactor went up at the same time, creating a ball of fire that could be seen for millions of miles. Jake's escape pod tumbled through space, its systems damaged by the explosion. He could barely see through the cracked window, but he watched the remaining Vorthan ships retreat. One of their warships was gone and the fighters were low on fuel. The battle was over. Lisa's ship picked up Jake's pod 20 minutes later. He was unconscious and bleeding but alive. The first thing he saw when he woke up in the Liberty's Edge medical bay was Kale's worried face looking down at him. You crazy human, Kale said in his improving English. You almost die. Jake tried to sit up and winced from the pain in his arm. Did we win? We win, Kale confirmed. Bad ships run away. You save everyone. Lisa appeared beside Kale's shoulder. That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen anyone do, she told Jake. You destroyed a Vorthan warship with a cargo hauler. Jake managed a weak smile. It seemed like a good idea at the time. The Zephyrian government is sending ships to escort us to the nearest starbase, Lisa continued. Kale's family is waiting. For him there. Jake looked at the young alien who had become like a brother to him. Are you ready to go home? Kyle's silver markings glowed softly. I ready, But I never forget brave human who saved me. I tell everyone about Jake Morrison. Jake felt proud and sad at the same time. He had saved Cale's life, but now they would have to say goodbye. Still, he knew he had done the right thing. Sometimes, being human meant making hard choices and big sacrifices for people you cared about. The boy was safe, and that was all that mattered. 2 weeks later, Jake stood on the observation deck of Starbase Alpha, watching Zephyrian ships arrive through the space dock's massive doors. His left arm was still in a healing cast, but the doctors said he would recover completely. More importantly, he was about to see Cale reunited with his family. The largest Zephyrian ship was beautiful in a way that human ships were not. Its hull curved like flowing water, and blue lights ran along its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. Jake had learned that this was the royal transport carrying Ambassador Thyron's wife and the rest of Cale's family. "Nervous?" Lisa asked, joining Jake at the window. She had stayed at the starbase to help with the official meetings between human and Zephyrian leaders. "A little," Jake admitted. "I saved their kid, but I'm just a cargo pilot. These are important people." "You're more important than you think," Lisa replied. "What you did changed everything between our species." The Zephyrian ship docked with the starbase, and Jake could see aliens moving through the connecting tunnel. They moved with a grace that humans could never match, their silver markings glowing softly in the dim light. Jake had been staying in guest quarters on the starbase, while his injuries healed. The human government had questioned him for days about everything that happened. They wanted to know every detail about the Vorthon attack and how he had communicated with Kyle. But the questions had stopped when the Zephyrian government sent an official message. They did not want Jake treated like a criminal. They wanted to honor him as a hero. "Jake," came a familiar voice from behind him. Jake turned to see Cale walking toward him. But he looked different now. Instead of the torn jumpsuit, Cale wore elegant robes that marked him as Zephyrian nobility. His silver markings were brighter, and he carried himself with new confidence. But his smile was the same. "You look good," Jake said, giving Cale a careful hug with his good arm. "How do you feel?" "Happy, sad, excited, scared," Cale replied in English that was much better than before. "Many feelings at same time." "That's normal," Jake told him. "Big changes always feel like that." Cale looked serious for a moment. "My family want to meet you. They want to thank the human who saved their son." Jake felt nervous butterflies in his stomach. "I don't know what to say to them." "Say truth," Cale advised. "That is all they want." They walked together through the starbase corridors toward the diplomatic meeting rooms. Jake was surprised by how many people stopped to stare at them. Word had spread quickly about the human, who risked everything to save an alien child. Some humans looked at Jake like he was crazy. Others looked at him like he was a hero. The meeting room was large and formal, with flags from both human and Zephyrian governments hanging on the walls. But Jake only had eyes for the tall, elegant alien woman who stood in the center of the Yar room. Her blue skin was darker than Cale's, and her silver markings formed complex patterns that showed her high rank. "Mother," Cale said in Zephyrian, then switched to English. "This is Jake Morrison. Jake, this is my mother, Lady Serena." Lady Serena stepped forward and did something Jake did not expect. She knelt down in front of him, placing her hands on the floor in what was clearly a gesture of deep respect. "Lady Serena, please stand up," Jake said, feeling embarrassed. "You don't need to do that." She rose gracefully and looked into Jake's eyes. When she spoke, her English was perfect but accented with musical tones. "Captain Morrison, you gave me back my son when I thought he was lost forever. There is no honor too great for such a gift. I just did what anyone would do," Jake replied. "No," Lady Serena said firmly. "Most beings would have left Cale to die rather than risk their own lives. But humans are different. You fight for others even when it brings you no benefit." Over. The next hour, Jake met other members of Cale's family and several Zephyrian government officials. They all treated him with respect that made him uncomfortable. He was just a cargo pilot who had made a split-second decision to help someone in trouble. But as the meeting continued, Jake began to understand that his actions had consequences far beyond saving one boy's life. The Zephyrian government had been uncertain about making an alliance with humans. Many Zephyrians believed humans were too aggressive and selfish to be trusted. Jake's rescue of Kale had changed their minds. Here was proof that humans would risk everything to protect innocent life, even alien life. The peace talks that had stalled after Ambassador Thyron's death were moving forward again. The Galactic Council has been watching these negotiations carefully, one Zephyrian official explained. Other species want to see if humans and Zephyrians can work together. Your actions have shown them that cooperation is possible. 3 days later, Jake attended the signing ceremony for the new treaty between Earth and Zephyros. He sat in the front row, still wearing his arm cast, watching as human and Zephyrian leaders put their signatures on the historic document. Kale sat beside him, translating the ceremony into English when needed. They are promising to share technology and defend each other against common enemies, Kale explained. Also to trade goods and allow people to visit each other's worlds. That's good, Jake said. Maybe other kids won't have to go through what you did. After the ceremony, Lady Serena approached Jake with a gift. It was a small device that looked like a crystal surrounded by metal. This is a Zephyrian communication device, she explained. It will allow you to talk to Kale no matter how far apart you are. He is asked to stay in contact with his human family. Jake felt tears in his eyes. Human family? Kale stepped forward and put his hand on Jake's shoulder. You saved my life and risked everything for me. That makes you family. In Zephyrian culture, family bonds are stronger than anything else. The next surprise came from the human government. Admiral Rogers, the head of the Colonial Space Command, presented Jake with a new ship. It was not a cargo hauler like the Star Runner, but a beautiful courier vessel designed for fast travel between star systems. The Zephyrian government insisted on paying for it, Admiral Rogers explained. They want you to serve as an official liaison between human and Zephyrian traders. Apparently, they trust you more than they trust our diplomats. Jake looked at the ship through the docking bay window. It was sleek and fast with comfortable quarters and the latest navigation equipment. The name painted on the hull made him smile. Kale's Hope. I picked the name, Kale said proudly, because you gave hope to both our peoples. 6 months later, Jake was flying regular routes between human and Zephyrian worlds, carrying important messages and helping to establish trade relationships. His story had spread throughout both civilizations, inspiring others to look past species differences and see the person inside. Kale had returned to Zephyros to continue his education, but they talked every week using the communication device. The young alien was studying human culture and technology, preparing to become an ambassador like his father. I want to help build bridges between our peoples, Kyle told Jake during one of their conversations, just like you did when you saved me. Jake often thought about that day in the asteroid field when he first found Kale's escape pod. He could have easily flown past and continued with his cargo delivery. Instead, he had made a choice that changed the course of galactic history. But Jake knew the real lesson was simpler than that. When someone needed help, you helped them. It did not matter if they were human or alien, rich or poor, important or ordinary. You did what was right because it was right. That was what made humans special, Jake realized. Not their technology or their weapons, but their willingness to sacrifice for others. It was a lesson that was spreading throughout the galaxy, one rescue at a time. As Jake guided his ship toward another Zephyrian world, carrying messages of friendship and cooperation, he smiled at the stars ahead. Somewhere out there, Kale was growing up to be a leader who would help keep the peace between their peoples. The boy who had been lost in space had found his way home, and in doing so, had shown two civilizations how to find their way to each other. Jake grabbed the ship's controls and pushed the engines to full power. The Star Runner shot forward like a bullet, racing toward the asteroid field they had left a week ago. Behind them, the 3 Vorthon warships gave chase, their weapons all ready, charging up to fire. Hold on tight, Jake shouted to Kale, who was strapped into the co-pilot seat. The young alien's silver markings were glowing bright with fear, but his eyes showed trust in Jake. The first laser blast hit the space where they had been just seconds before. Jake twisted the ship sideways and dove between two large asteroids. The Vorthan ships were bigger and more powerful, but they were also slower and less able to turn quickly. "Why they want me so bad?" Kyle asked, gripping his seat as the ship shook from another near miss. "Because your father was important," Jake replied, spinning the ship around a floating chunk of metal. "They probably want to sell you to someone who hates your people." Jake had spent years flying through dangerous places. He knew every trick for staying alive in space. But he had never been chased by 3 warships at the same time. His cargo ship had shields and some armor, but it was built for carrying things, not fighting. The Vorthan commander's voice came over the radio again. "You cannot escape us, human. Give us the boy and we will make your death quick." Jake turned off the radio and focused on flying. He steered the ship deeper into the asteroid field, where the big Vorthan ships would have trouble following. The rocks here were thick and moved in dangerous patterns. One wrong move could smash them into pieces. "Jake," Kale said suddenly. "I can help." "How?" Jake asked, dodging another asteroid while laser fire lit up the space around them. Kale put his glowing hands on the ship's control panel. "I can make shields stronger, make sensors better, my people good with machines." Jake felt the ship's systems respond to Kale's touch. The shields became more powerful, and the sensors showed him a clearer picture of the asteroid field ahead. It was like the ship had suddenly become more alive. "That's amazing," Jake said. "Can you do anything else?" "Maybe make engines run cooler." "Make ship harder to see," Kale replied, his markings glowing brighter as he concentrated. The Vorthan ships were having trouble following them through the thick asteroids. But Jake could see on his sensors that they were sending out smaller fighter ships. These little ships could follow the Star Runner anywhere. 6 Vorthan fighters came racing through the asteroid field. They were fast and heavily armed. Jake knew his ship could not outrun them in open space. "More bad ships coming," Kyle warned, looking at the sensor display he had somehow learned to read. Jake made a dangerous decision. He flew the Star Runner toward the biggest asteroid in the field, a rock the size of a small moon. The surface was covered with deep cracks and caves. If he could find a place to hide, maybe the fighters would give up looking for them. The fighters opened fire as soon as they got close. Red laser beams cut through space all around the cargo ship. Jake twisted and turned, using every asteroid as cover. One blast hit their rear shields, making the whole ship shake. "Shields at 60%, Jake called out. Kale pressed his hands harder against the control panel. "I try make them stronger," he said. Jake found what he was looking for, a deep crack in the big asteroid led to a cave system inside the rock. The opening was barely big enough for his ship, but Jake had no choice. He flew straight toward the narrow gap. "Jake, too small," Kale shouted. "Trust me," Jake replied. The Star Runner scraped against the rock walls as it squeezed into the cave. Sparks flew from the ship's hull, but they made it inside. The cave was much bigger once they got past the entrance. Jake turned off the engines and all unnecessary systems to make the ship as quiet as possible. The Vorthan fighters flew past the cave entrance without seeing them. Jake and Kale sat in the dark, listening to the enemy ships search the area outside. "We, safe for now," Jake whispered. Kale was looking at the ship's communication system. His face showed worry. "Jake, I want to tell you something important. My father was not just ambassador. He was coming to make big agreement with humans. Very important for both our peoples." "What kind of agreement?" Jake asked. "Trade agreement. Technology sharing. Maybe military help against common enemies," Kale explained. "If I die, agreement dies too. Bad people win." Jake understood now why the Vorthans wanted Kale so badly. If they killed the ambassador's son, it would destroy the peace talks between humans and Zephyrians. Some people made money from war and conflict. Peace was bad for their business. "We need to get you to safety," Jake said. "But I don't think my ship can outrun those warships." Kale touched the communication panel. "I have idea. Can call for help." Jake showed Kale how to use the long-range communicator. The young alien worked with the machine for several minutes, his markings glowing as he made adjustments that Jake did not understand. Finally, he got a signal through. This is Jake Morrison on the cargo ship Star Runner. Jake spoke into the communicator. I need to talk to Captain Lisa Chen of the human patrol ship Liberty's Edge. It took almost an hour, but finally Lisa's voice came through the static. Jake, what are you doing out here? And why are you using an encrypted military channel? Lisa, I need help. Big help. I've got 3 Vorthan warships trying to kill me and a very important passenger. What kind of passenger? Lisa asked suspiciously. Jake looked at Kale, who nodded. The son of the Zephyrian ambassador, the one who was supposed to meet with our government leaders. There was a long silence. Then Lisa's voice came back, sounding shocked. Jake, are you telling me you have Ambassador Thyron's son on your ship? Yes, his parents were killed by Vorthan raiders. I rescued him from an escape pod. Now they want him back. Where are you? Jake gave Lisa their location in the asteroid field. Can you help us? I'm 2 hours away with 2 patrol ships. Can you stay hidden that long? I'll try, Jake replied. After ending the communication, Jake and Kale waited in the dark cave. They could hear the Vorthon fighters still searching outside. The enemy was not giving up. Jake, Kale said quietly. Why you save me? You not know me. You risk your life for stranger. Jake thought about the question. Because it was the right thing to do. You were hurt and alone. My brother died when I wasn't there to help him. I won't let that happen to someone else if I can stop it. Kyle's markings glowed softly. Humans very strange. Most species only help their own kind. But you help everyone. Not all humans are like that, Jake admitted. But the good ones try to be. Suddenly, the ship's sensors detected movement outside. The Vorthon fighters had found their hiding place. Red laser light began pouring into the cave as the enemy ships prepared to attack. They found us, Jake said, starting the engines. Hold on, Kyle, this is going to get rough. The Star Runner burst out of the cave like a cork from a bottle. 6 Vorthan fighters were waiting for them, weapons ready. Jake immediately dove toward the asteroid field center, where the rocks were thickest and most dangerous. The chase was on again, and this time Jake knew they might not escape. But he also knew he would never give up. As long as he was alive, he would protect Kale. It was what humans did. They fought for what was right, even when the odds were against them. The Vorthan fighters opened fire, and Jake began the most dangerous flying of his life. The alien boy woke up on the 3rd day. Jake was eating breakfast in the ship's small kitchen when he heard strange sounds coming from the medical room. He rushed to check on his patient and found the young alien sitting up in bed looking around, with wide, frightened eyes. The alien saw Jake and immediately pressed himself against the wall. He started speaking rapidly in a language that sounded like music mixed with whispers. His voice was higher than a human's voice, and he seemed terrified. Jake held up both hands to show he meant no harm. Easy there, he said in a calm voice. I'm not going to hurt you, my name is Jake. The alien boy continued speaking in his own language, pointing at Jake and then at himself. His silver markings began to glow faintly, which surprised Jake. The boy's blue skin had returned to a healthier color, and his burns were healing remarkably fast. Jake moved slowly to the medical computer and activated the translation program. The computer had been recording the alien's speech and was trying to figure out what language it was. After a few minutes, the screen showed partial translations of some words. Friend, no, scared, home, family. The computer translated. Jake pointed to himself and said clearly, Jake, my name is Jake. Then he pointed to the alien boy and raised his eyebrows questioningly. The alien watched Jake carefully. After a long moment, he touched his chest and said something that sounded like Kale, but with more musical notes in it. Kale, Jake repeated, trying to copy the sound. The alien boy nodded and almost smiled. It was the first sign that he might trust Jake. Over the next few hours, Jake worked patiently to communicate with Kale. He brought food and water, showing Kale that it was safe to eat. The alien boy was hungry and ate carefully, tasting each bite before swallowing. Some human food seemed to agree with him, while others made him make disgusted faces that made Jake laugh. Jake used his computer tablet to show Kale pictures and words. He pointed to a picture of a human and said, "Human." Then he pointed to Kale and raised his eyebrows. Kale understood and said a word that sounded like Zephyrian. "Zephyrian," Jake repeated, and Kale nodded happily. As the translation program learned more of Kale's language, communication became easier. Jake learned that Kale was indeed young, about 16 years old in human terms. He came from a planet called Zephyros, which was many days away from where they were now. The real breakthrough came when Jake showed Kale the family picture he had found in the escape pod. Kale's silver markings dimmed, and tears began flowing down his blue cheeks. He held the picture close to his chest and spoke sadly in his language. The computer translated slowly. "Parents, gone, attack, bad ones, fire, explosion. They saved me. Alone now." Jake felt his heart break for the young alien. He sat down next to Kale and put a gentle hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry," Jake said. "Your parents were brave. They loved you very much." Even with the language barrier, Kale seemed to understand Jake's sympathy. He looked up at Jake with large dark eyes that reminded Jake of his dead brother. Over the following days, Kale became more comfortable with Jake. He was incredibly smart and learned English words quickly. Jake taught him basic phrases like thank you, please, and help. In return, Kale taught Jake some Zephyrian words. Jake learned that Kale's father had been someone very important called Ambassador Thyron. His family had been traveling to meet with human leaders to talk about peace between their peoples. This explained why their ship had been attacked. Someone did not want humans and Zephyrians to become friends. "Bad ship people," Kale said in broken English, using his hands to show Jake what had happened. "They want catch me, sell me, parents fight, parents die, put me in small ship, I fly away." Jake understood. Pirates or slavers had attacked Kale's family ship, probably planning to capture the ambassador's son and sell him. Kale's parents had sacrificed themselves to save their child. "Vorthon," Kale said, spitting out the word like it tasted bad. "Very bad people. Take children, make slaves." Jake had heard of the Vorthons. They were a nasty species that lived by stealing and selling other people. Most civilized worlds considered them criminals and pirates. As Kale recovered his strength, Jake was amazed by how curious the young alien was about everything. Kale wanted to know how the ship worked, what all the buttons did, and why humans needed so many machines. He was especially interested in Jake's tools and spent hours watching Jake perform maintenance on the ship. "Human things very smart," Kale said one day while watching Jake repair a broken circuit. "You make many clever things." Jake was surprised. Most alien species looked down on humans as primitive and backwards, but Kale seemed genuinely impressed by human technology and ingenuity. Kale also showed Jake some amazing things about Zephyrian abilities. His silver markings could glow brighter when he concentrated, and he could sense electrical fields around machines. When Jake's navigation computer started acting up, Kale touched it and somehow fixed the problem. "How did you do that?" Jake asked. Kale struggled to explain in his limited English. "Zephyrians, we feel machine spirits, can talk to them sometimes." Jake thought this was fascinating. Humans had to use tools and computers to fix machines, but Zephyrians could communicate with electronics directly. During their time together, Jake began to feel protective of Kale. The young alien reminded him so much of his brother, always curious and asking questions about everything. Jake found himself telling Kale stories about Earth and human history. Kale listened with wide eyes and asked even more questions. But their peaceful time together was about to end. On the 7th day since Jake had rescued Kale, the ship's warning systems activated. Jake rushed to the control room and looked at his sensors. 3 large warships were approaching fast. Their design was ugly and threatening, with weapon ports visible along their hulls. Jake recognized the ships immediately. From wanted posters he had seen at space stations. Vorthon raiders. Jake ran back to find Kale, who was already scared. The young alien's markings were glowing brightly with fear. "Vorthons," Kale whispered. "They found me." Jake grabbed Kale's shoulders and looked into his eyes. "I won't let them take you," he promised. "We're going to get out of this." But Jake knew they were in serious trouble. His cargo ship was no match for 3 Vorthan warships. He would have to use every trick he knew to keep Kyle safe. The communication system crackled to life. A harsh voice spoke in broken English. "Human ship, you have property that belongs to us. Give us the Zephyrian child and we will let you live." Jake looked at Kale, who was trembling with fear. Then Jake walked to the communication panel and pressed the reply button. "Go to hell," Jake said, and turned off the radio. The chase was about to begin.